Welcome to Business Success Tips, where you learn to make more money in less time and have a lot more fun. I'm your host, Paul Sanneman. I'm founder of Contractor Staffing Source, where we help contractors build great teams. My guest today is Natalie and Gordon Loeb, and they are Loeb Leadership. So, Natalie, why don't you start and give me a little backstory of how Loeb Leadership got started?
Yeah, absolutely. So the business got started, Paul, 27 years ago. This was my answer to be able to have a career, and also that's when our second child was born, and for me to be able to be a working mom too.
Okay.
So that's how the business started. But prior to starting the business, I did my graduate work in what's called industrial organizational psychology. And what that means is I've always been interested in how to help people perform at their best in their workplace, whatever that workplace may be. I was always fascinated about how to help people get along, how to build teams. And I did that work 10 years, 12, 15 years in-house before I started the business and our second child was born. 27 years later, we've grown into a pretty large consulting firm with over 60 consultants. And we help our clients, whoever they may be at whatever level and whatever size, lead their businesses effectively.
Great. So, Gordon, what's your backstory?
My backstory is I have a financial background and also sales and management. I was fascinated by what Natalie was doing, especially when she became an independent consultant back in 1997. I helped in the background, put a little infrastructure around it because Natalie and I have very different styles, and style is a very big topic for what we do. And Natalie was focused on just getting out there and doing her work, and I helped in the background with invoices and negotiations and agreements. I helped build an infrastructure around what she was doing as well. And I came over full-time about 15 years ago to make it a true family business. And as Natalie mentioned, it's grown to over 65 consultants at this point in time.
Great. So I've been a business coach for God knows 50 years. And the biggest problem I always had, and maybe how I do this, is most of the people in construction are, I'm going to call them craftsmen. They're a carpenter, an electrician, whatever, frame. They have some craft. And they decide for whatever reason they're not making enough money, their wife yells at them, who knows? They decide to start their own business, right? Or it usually happens organically. They quit their job, get a couple remodels, get a couple houses, and pretty soon they have an organization. It could be 2 people, 10 people. How do you help people make their transition from a craftsman to a leader or an entrepreneur? I always had a hard time doing that. How do you guys pull that off?
Yeah. So I'll start if you want, Gordon, and then
Sure.
you certainly weigh in. So what you're talking about, Paul, is it's what I will say every professional goes through at some point in their career as they decide to build something, or they don't have the capacity anymore just themselves to do everything that has to get done. They realize they want to perhaps make some more money, or they need more people to do that. And it's a place that, whether it's the type of craft you're talking about or within a large organization, people sort of elevate. Now they're in charge of others. They need others to get things done and to get it done efficiently. And the toughest part always is, as I think you already alluded to, is moving from the doer to the overseer, or the doer to the leader. And it's difficult. It's difficult to give up. No one can do it as good as I do, as well as I do. I know everything about this. I'm not sure anyone else will know it as well as I do. So making this transition in your mind, or being committed to, okay, I have a plan. I'm making an intentional decision that I'd like to grow this business, and I'm not going to do it on my own. I'll need others to do it with me. Means first you have to make this sort of mindset shift that I realize that I can't do everything on my own. In fact, what I need to do is find great, competent people that will work well with me so I can do more. And I can coach them, I can teach them, I can train them. You may hire them with the right skills, but I've got to be able to provide them with some guidance, some resources, some tools, so they can be excellent at their jobs. And if you're providing the guidance and the resources and the tools, you can't be doing that and doing all of the work at the same time. It's just not going to work for you. You're not going to effectively be able to grow the business. So it's that mindset shift from doing to overseeing, from doing to providing the resource support and the tools and the coaching.
So how do you help them make that mind shift?
You could call it that.
The mind shift, right? So
Sure.
What happens is usually the guy goes, well, I tried it. I trusted a guy. He did me in. I'm never going to trust a guy again. I gave him a project. He cost me, $50,000. Screw that. I got to do it myself. So Gordon, you talk about how you did that same transition. How do you get somebody to trust somebody once they've done it and been betrayed, for lack of a better term?
Good question.
That is a great question, and that's a loaded one. But it really comes down a lot to emotional intelligence, and establishing trust and building trust. It really takes a lot of sometimes effort, but it takes a little bit about understanding who you are and the people that you're working with. You know how to communicate more effectively with them. Sometimes the communication or the breakdowns that happen and the conflicts that happen are just a communication issue, or maybe you thought you said something and they understood it, but you really didn't ask for clarification on that. So communication skills are very, very important. If you understand more about what triggers you, what might put you under pressure, because contractors are under a lot of pressure and stress. So you have to make really strong decisions while you might be under stress. So how do you handle that stress more effectively? How do you see the stress in other people that you might be working with? Do you notice that? Is there a better way of having a conversation based on the feedback that you're getting? If something does go wrong, is it all on that person that you're trying to bring along? Or what is your role in the breakdown or the conflict that's going to happen? And how do you have that better conversation? It's a lot of it comes to aligning your actions with your values, what you're trying to do with your being a contractor and building things. So if you do the things that align with it, you're more likely to do things that will help you build that trust. But a lot of it comes down to communication and actively listening.
What I've noticed is contractors have no problem spending money on stuff, tractors, whatever. Software, it's even harder. Like, I don't need that. But when it comes to investing in emotional intelligence, I mean, come on, they go, that's too airy-fairy for me. I'm not going to learn all that stuff. So how do you, because they can buy stuff, they can buy software, they can invest in themselves and become a better human being. But to a lot of contractors, that's like, nah, not my deal. So how do you get them to make that move or that transition to working on themselves as opposed to working on the job?
Paul, what's really interesting in the work that we do, we can't make anybody do anything, right? There's got to be some sort of pain point. Let me give you an example. There's somebody we're working with right now that is a contractor. And what happened there? Well, him and his wife are actually growing this business, also a family business. And what's happening, unfortunately, is I don't say all of a sudden, but over the past several months, they have been losing too many workers. Okay. People coming in, people going out.
Right.
And the wife actually said to the husband, and because he's in charge of overseeing the workers, she does the operational paperwork. He's the one that hires and oversees them and makes sure they're doing their job. So the wife said to the husband, we can't sustain this. We're not getting things done because it's like a revolving door here. And when they're leaving, they're saying things to the wife about the way he treated them, the way he spoke to them, the way he came down on them because he didn't really give them enough direction or clear instructions. So the wife was getting this feedback that people were leaving because of the way this husband manager was treating them. And she's like, you got to do something about this. This isn't going to help us. She said, I need you to go find a coach. And she actually found us. And because, she found us. And so that guy, he actually came to me and we started talking and spending time together. And I got to see what it was like when he interacted with his folks. And he would start bringing situations to me, what was frustrating him, why he was getting angry. He recognized that his tone was too loud or the words he was saying really weren't kind. So, we started talking about that and started giving him other language that he could use, other ways to set expectations. So people would feel as though he really does care about them and wants them to be successful. Those small tweaks in the way you talk to people, in the language that you use, in the tone that you use to make sure you're giving them, again, those tools, the resources to be successful, that makes all the difference. But people don't necessarily get that until they sort of spend some time with someone to help them understand what is it that they're doing and what could they do differently. And often it's small tweaks, Paul. That's all it is.
Well, I think the most important talent any contractor has is his ability to build a team. But unfortunately, they say, no, I'm great at foundations or whatever skills that they've got. And I go, no. If you look at people that are successful, I use Elon Musk's example. If he was just a brilliant guy, he'd be at Caltech inventing stuff, but he can build great teams, right? That's his secret sauce. He knows how to build teams. So can you help contractors actually acquire the skills on how to build a team?
Yeah, of course. Gordon, you want to?
No, sure. So one of the programs that we do a lot of work with is called the 5 dysfunctions of a team. by Patrick Lencioni. And the reverse of that is the 5 cohesive behaviors of a team. And the model that he describes really is in a pyramid shape. And the foundation is what we just talked about, trust. But it's vulnerability-based trust versus predictive trust. Vulnerability-based trust means, hey, Paul, you know what? I know we were supposed to finish that job on Friday. It's only Wednesday. I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish it up because we're waiting on supplies over here and a couple of my guys are over there. So I wanted to give you a heads up. So that's vulnerability-based trust, that they feel comfortable enough to say what's really going on versus them not feeling comfortable and Friday comes and all of a sudden, what's going on with the project? We're not going to make it. Nobody told me. So you first have to have that vulnerability-based trust. And once you establish that, you can have true, authentic conflict. And I know a lot of people want to avoid conflict as much as possible, but a lot of people live in, or a lot of teams live in artificial harmony, where people are like, yeah, I'm on board with that. Yeah, I agree with the way we're going to do that. And they don't really agree. And they walk away and they never really bought into what was happening. The other side of that is destructive conflict, where people get nasty and tempers get really high. You want to be somewhere in the middle. You don't want people to live in artificial harmony. You want them to feel that they're invested in the conflict, and no matter which direction it goes in, that they were heard. Once you have that authentic conflict, you can have true commitment. Because how do you have people commit when they didn't really believe in the conflict in the first place, or what was transpiring? And once they commit, you can hold them accountable. That's the 4th of the 5 behaviors. Again, how do you hold people accountable if they never truly committed? And then it leads to better results. So those are the 5 behaviors that if you do them successfully and you start with that foundation of vulnerability-based trust, you can have a more successful team. A lot of people don't take the time on the front end to understand a little bit more about the people that they're working with on their team. The more you know about your coworkers, the more you're going to have a better chance of establishing that trust and establishing better relationships.
Well, I know, I used to give a webinar on the most important thing with a client is trust, right? If you're a vendor. The same thing with your team is trust, right? But I mean, trust is built in several ways. One by, I think I used the book, the 4 agreements. I mean, that kind of, that's how you build trust with those kind of commitments, right? So what do you suggest people do to build, there's trust with their employees? Any practical, like read a book or have meetings, or how do they get that trust to work when they're a little bit, I don't know, they don't want to be vulnerable, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
You want to take a nap and I'll add to that?
Sure. So the first thing we always tell any leader, no matter what they're leading or what environment that they're leading in, is like Gordon started to talk about, is to allow yourself to get to know your folks a little bit, right? You build trust with people by showing interest and curiosity around them, right? So when, I know it's part of your interviewing process, or when you bring them on board, you want to know a little bit about them. You want to know how they, how they like to work, what their strengths are, where their sweet spots are, where they, you really want to show that you're interested in them. And you also want to, while you're doing that, you want to be really good at demonstrating some patience and also using really good listening skills, right? These are all leadership skills that we teach leaders that fall under that emotional intelligence that Gordon mentioned earlier, that help people to build trust. We always say that every interaction between you and one of your employees is either an opportunity to build trust or to break trust. Right? So we build trust by showing respect. We build trust by providing guidance and support. We build trust by noticing their strengths. We build trust by giving honest, candid feedback in a supportive way, to showing them we really want them to be successful. And we build trust that when they make a mistake, we don't yell and scream at them and show frustration and we say, dude, no, let me show you, there's another way to do this, and this is how, right? All of those types of behaviors will help you to build trust with your employees. There's no doubt about it. Can't say enough how important it is to, I'm going to say stay connected, but have ongoing, frequent communication with the folks that are working with you and showing interest. Everybody does it in different ways, whether it's every morning when you get together and you start a project and you're having a coffee and you're checking in and how things are going, prepared for the day. Is there anything missing, anything that we might surprise us? Keep that open conversation going. And then as a leader, as you support, as you commit, as you follow through on the promises that you've made, all of this will help you to build trust, Paul. That's what it is. Do what you say you're going to do, and you're going to build trust. Do one thing or say one thing and do another, there you
Doesn't
go.
work.
You're going to break trust. Okay.
Right.
Embarrass somebody in front of others, you're going to break trust. Yell at
Right.
folks in front of others, you're going to break trust. So you have to think about what your behaviors are, and you can choose to build it or to break it. Question people ask a lot is, can I rebuild trust after I have broken it? Because we're not perfect people. So I'll hand that one over to Gordon, but that's probably something
Well,
that
I have a saying when people tell me that, I say resurrection is harder than birth. It's possible, but it's not easy.
Well, I will say the research actually says, right, you can rebuild trust, right? And there's plenty of books out there and there's articles, you can Google anything to find it, but it takes intention and it takes two to tango, if you will. Some
Yeah.
people really sometimes will walk away from someone and you can't control others' behavior, and that's a whole other issue.
Well, it's the glass half full, glass half empty. Some people will trust immediately until it's broken, and some people will want people to earn that trust before they give it. And when it is broken, it is sometimes more challenging because they might have invested in it and already have that trust built up, and now they get very, very disappointed because if you did one thing that broke that trust, that means that maybe there are other things that will break that trust going on as well. So once trust is broken, it takes a longer time of steady commitment to reestablish that trust, to continue to model the way to do what you say you will do, just like Natalie mentioned too. That acronym DWSIWID really does fit a lot of things, to really model the behaviors you expect from others. And if you do deviate, if something does happen, to be able to talk to the folks around you, to help them understand what might have happened there. Feedback is a great tool to help build trust. So sometimes people don't realize how their behaviors and actions are landing other people. That's part of emotional intelligence. They might not realize that the behaviors that they're exhibiting might be breaking that trust until somebody gives them feedback and said, hey, this is not what we talked about. This is not lining up with our conversation. And if that person then hears that feedback and makes that adjustment, that reinforces that trust. If the person hears that feedback and doesn't make an adjustment, that makes it a lot tougher.
I know. I said with people that lie 10% of the time, you never know when the 10% is, right?
Yeah.
So you like trust anything they say.
That's very true.
So your organization focuses on that in construction industries, right? That's what you do?
Sure. So we actually work within all industries. We work with a lot of construction businesses. We work with a lot of small family businesses. We work with larger businesses. We work with real estate development companies. And so we're working with leaders at all levels, Paul. Sometimes it might be a project manager that, again, was excellent at managing his own work or her own work or on her own, but now all of a sudden she's elevated it, or somebody decided to give her a team, and now she's overseeing a couple of people, and so now she needs to learn how to manage rather than do.
I know most people have not read Drucker or know the Peter Principle. I think that's probably not a reading list, right?
Yeah.
So now a question for you guys. This sounds like really good stuff. How do people engage with you, and how do you know whether it's going to be a good fit? I mean, to go to your website, you have an interview. First, I think you're right. You can't get somebody to do something they don't want to do, right? But once they realize, okay, my turnover is too high, my organization isn't working. I was promoted above my level to, I mean, the Peter Principle certainly applies to people that own companies. They're promoted above their level to cope, right? And so the organization falls apart. So when they realize something is going wrong and it must be me, right? Which is the first realization you have to have.
Or maybe, is it me? I mean, we always say things have to do with either people, process, or structure, Paul, right?
Right.
So we've worked with organizations and companies where they think it's a people problem, but really it's process or structure. Like the leadership team isn't structured right, or the person in charge hasn't hired the right people. I mean, the most important part is getting what Jim Collins would say in Good to Great, getting the right people on the bus, right?
Right. And traction says the same thing. I get it.
Yeah, exactly. Get the right people on the bus, put them in the right seats, right roles, and guess what? It's a lot easier to lead them and manage them. So we have to think about that. And then sometimes you get the right people in the right seats, but the person leading them doesn't really know how to do that, right? That's the people part. How do I make sure they're clear on their expectations? I'm giving them feedback. I'm building trust. They're inspired to come to work every day. I minimize gossip and blaming. We don't want to do any of that, right? Instead, we want people coming up with good ideas and thinking about what's ahead of them, anticipating needs. If something's keeping somebody up at night, if somebody's feeling very stressed, if somebody's, constantly talking about issues with other people and conflicts, that's a sign, I could use some help here within my business to minimize my stress and elevate my leadership performance.
So if they're interested in this, how do they reach you, and what is your process to engage with people, and how does that work?
You want to
Sure. So first of all, they can go to our website, loebleadership.com, Loeb as in boy, leadership.com. They can email Natalie at Loeb Leadership or Gordon at Loeb Leadership, Gordon. And our intake process is really to have a quick conversation or have a conversation with whoever's calling in and really understand what the needs are, what they believe the needs are, what's happening. And then we can identify, okay, this might be a good opportunity for this program, or this might be a great opportunity for a one-on-one coach. And then we have the ability to go through our coach bench, which is quite deep, to figure out which of the coaches might be a good fit. We introduce that to the person that might need that coach, and we do what we call is a fit conversation or a chemistry call, where they see if they're lined up with what they're trying to accomplish, the coach and the coachee, because we want the coachee to buy into the process. And part of that is to buy into who the coach is. And then we establish what kind of an engagement it's going to be and how much time it's going to take.
And so the fee structure is based on the engagement, I assume, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So yeah, the initial conversations are at absolutely no charge. We want to find out, hey, first of all, what's going on from your perspective, and how can we support you with that? And we sometimes, if it's not a service that we provide, we do have a lot of other contacts that can potentially help them.
Okay, great. And so they just go to Loeb Leadership, and then there's some, make an appointment or something, and just get in touch with you that way.
Yeah, right there. There's a little box that shows up. Put your name, put your interest, and somebody will get back to you and certainly find out how we can be of service, of help. We do coaching virtually. There are coaches around the country. It really depends where a person is and how they like to work with somebody, and we'll find out, try and help.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being here. This is something that's really needed in the industry, because a lot of other coaching companies focus on process or structure, and they get the leadership part. They sort of forget that part, which to me is the most important part. So I'm glad you guys are doing that. That's great.
All right, Paul. Well, thank you for inviting us to speak, and we're really happy to be here, and we'd love to be of any help that we can.
Thanks, guys. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Paul.
it.
All right, take care.